I hope the audio works rather decently. I never trust it these days. Never do. Never trust it these days. Decently. I never trust it these days. Never do. Never trust it these days. Decently. I never trust. Perfect. Heck. Make the funny tweet. Perfect. Okay. That's all set up and good. At least I would assume so. I apologize for being a little late. Just about 11 minutes late, granted, but still late nonetheless. But yeah, we're gonna read more funny Higurashi. We're gonna get probably terrified by Rika because last time, yeah, that wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. I wasn't particularly a fan of the shit that Rika said. And I remember that in the last stream, I did not put on the funny casual outfit that I made for my model solely for the fucking Higurashi streams because I thought it was more fitting in a sense, you know. I don't know, and I made like a new version of it because I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I thought it'd be cool. That would be kind of fucking cool to have. But yeah, what do I know? But in any case, with all of that funny stuff out of the way, reading, it's something that hurts me more than the terrifying things that happen in Higurashi, and that's just kind of a common thing for me. If I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna die. It's simple as that. I had a restless night's sleep. I did nothing but turn over repeatedly during the night that seemed like it had lasted for an eternity. Even then, I did eventually fall asleep at some point, not realizing how high in the sky the sun had risen. I shook off the urge to go back to sleep. It was when I noticed that the phone was ringing. The time was almost 10:30 in the morning. It was clearly too late for a wake-up call.
赤坂さんですか。おはようございます。大石です。
I don't think you're the first person I wanted to... Look, we just started, and you are not the first person I wanted to hear from, okay? So, tell me, bitch, why fuck you here? Why fuck you here? Waking up to Oishi's voice was a little too much of a shock. My delicate ears were ringing. But thanks to that shock, I was suddenly awake.
どうも。おはようございます。
ひょっとして今お目覚めですか。出張中とはいえ勤務時間には起きないといけませんよ。
Fuck you.
まったくです。以後気をつけます。
あなたの眠気をもう一つ覚ましてあげられるかもしれない話があります。ひなみ沢駐在所から届いた遺失物に興味深いものが混じっていたんです。
遺失物？
詳しい話はこちらにいらっしゃってからにしましょう。お昼前に来れますか？
いえ、すぐに伺います。
Oishi already knew what my mission was. Since Oishi said that it was something that would wake me up, it was hard to believe that it would be irrelevant to me. Honestly speaking, judging by the information from Sato-san yesterday, knowing that my cover was already blown, I couldn't wander to and from Hinamizawa carelessly. In other words, my investigation was at an impasse. If there was some information there that could put me back on the trail, that would be nothing less than a good stroke of fortune. After vigorously washing my face, I pulled on my jacket, hailed a taxi, headed towards the Okonomiya police station. Now, did you see that? Oishi just kind of teleported in the middle and then proceeded to teleport to the left side? What the fuck? What the fuck, can you be functional for 2 seconds? Why does this gotta happen to me?
天才ジャンシ様の到着だ。
遅くなって申し訳ありません。で、一体何が出たんですか？
With absolutely no intention of reminiscing about last night's mahjong game, I pressed him to get to the point. Oishi, anticipating that I would act that way, cut to the chase without any resistance.
先ほども申し上げましたが、今朝ひなみ沢の駐在所から遺失物が届きました。
Lost items that were turned over to the police box were sent to Okonomiya Station after the paperwork was filed out. Oishi pulled out a plastic bag from the drawer and laid its labeled contents on the desk.
財布ですか？
でしょうな。中には小銭はあってもお札はなかったもんなんで、スリが中身を抜いた後に捨ててったのかななんて思ったんですがね。最初は。
I didn't understand how this wallet, so far removed from Tokyo, could possibly be related to the kidnapping. If it had drawn Oishi's attention, it would have to be something dramatic, like if the wallet belonged to the missing grandchild. That would be absurd. Like something that convenient would ever happen. If that was it, then there would probably be initials written on the wallet. Like the initials of Toshiki Inukai, the minister's grandson, T.I. Thinking like that, at this point, I didn't suppose that this wallet was something that could get Oishi so excited. Oishi, after putting down a pair of disposable plastic gloves, handed me over a pair in the same. I didn't feel that this wallet was such an important thing, so I had my doubts about whether there was any point in putting on the gloves. However, I didn't want Oishi's intentions to go to waste, so I put them on. Oishi opened up the plastic bag and pulled it out, showing me the back. And just as I imagined, there were initials engraved in there. But it was slightly more detailed than I had thought. With... Oh... Oishi grinned at me with a look that's on his face that just said, "See?" We can't confirm that this belongs to the minister's grandson, I informed him calmly. This wallet was irrelevant. It was nothing more than Oishi's overeagerness. First of all, there was absolutely no way in this distant locale that a missing grandson's wallet would be found in such a convenient timing. After all, the Anafuguchi Guardians wasn't related to the case in the first place. So there was no way this wallet belonged to the grandson. Why I wanted to decide that was the case, even I didn't really know. Even though that would have been a top secret case was leaked before I had even been dispatched. In this situation, how could I say that this was definitely unrelated? Would it be more prudent, whatever the fuck that word is, to pay more attention to his wallet? It had only been a couple of days since I arrived at Hinamizawa, but those couple of days, due to the number of remarkable events, my nerves might have been a little, well, just a little frayed. Shaking my head slightly, I cleared all of those unnecessary thoughts in my head. Oishi opened the wallet's zipper, revealing its contents. Inside was small change and a number of crumbled receipts. Oishi, from that jumble, pulled out a folded card. Seeing that, my heart stopped for a moment. It was a card of a dental examination. The name Toshiki Inukai and the age. Well, so how's that convenient timing going for you, my good friend? A perfect match. The dentist location, it was in Tokyo. There was no need to explain any further. How far was it from Tokyo to Hinamizawa? It was far enough that taking the bullet trains and cars would still take several hours. Yep, welcome to a special hell. But why would a wallet with a dental examination card from Tokyo inside show up in Hinamizawa? Could it belong to a tourist who had came from Tokyo? Or maybe a villager on vacation to Tokyo just happened to pay a visit to the dentist? No. It had to have fallen into somebody's bag by accident. In my mind, I desperately struggled to find a possible excuse as to why this wallet didn't belong to Toshiki Inukai. It was as if it just wouldn't do for this wallet to just belong to him. However, weeding out any possibility for error one by one, the haze surrounding the wallet in front of me faded, gradually letting me come closer, letting it come clear into focus.
Ne?
I felt a shiver of electricity run up my spine. My pulse quickened, and a thin film of sweat began to coat my entire body. Look, bitch! Oishi's actually doing something useful for once. He actually found something pretty fucking great for us. If anything, this is a good clue for us. Okay? This is a good fucking clue for us. Quit trying to trying to pretend that this ain't related somehow. From Oishi's point of view, I was probably slack-jawed and spaced out with a whatever that fucking
こ
word
の
is.
鹿には問い合わせましたか？
そりゃ赤坂さんの仕事でしょ。私はまだそこまでは。
この財布はいつ頃のものでしょうね。
拾ったのは村人です。昨日のことだそうで。
じゃなくて、この財布はいつ頃落ちたものでしょうね。
ここいらに雨があったのはちょうど先週7日前。中身が水にやられた様子はないから最長で6日前からでしょうね。
この財布の存在は署内で誰が知ってます？
初期対応の日並沢駐在所の警官、それから遺失物対応で係が 2,3 人、あとは私とあなた。内緒の事件と関係があったらまずいでしょ。ベラベラとは喋ってないつもりですよ。
電話を借りていいですか？
どうぞどうぞ。外線はゼロ発信から。
Last time I saw this fucking thing, bad things happened. And I'm like, I dialed the phone number inscribed on the examination card. I could hear my pulse pounding inside my head. Could there possibly be something so absurd? The address on the receipts and cards inside the wallet were all from around the area where the grandson lived. The name on the examination card was also a match. The time we deduced that the wallet had been left behind also matched up with the timeline of the kidnapping. Of course, it was possible that I could just laugh it off as all a big pile of coincidences. There wasn't any necessarily strong evidence. Rather than all of this being circumstantial proof, the contents of the phone call I was about to make would have much greater meaning.
はい、お待たせしました。中川歯科です。
どうも。こちらは沖宮署です。実はお財布の落とし物がありまして、所有者の連絡先を探しております。ご協力をいただいてもよろしいでしょうか。お財布の中にそちら様の診察カードが入っておりまして、氏名は犬飼俊樹くんです。カードの番号を申し上げますので、電話番号をお調べいただいてもよろしいでしょうか。ありがとうございます。お願いできますか。
Still holding the receiver, I pulled out a notebook from my breast pocket with my free hand. I opened it up to the page with the grandson's address and the phone number recorded on it.
どうもすみません。はい。お願いします。
I compared the phone number written in my notebook with the one that was being read out on the other end of the line. During that process, I spun around and looked behind me uneasily, and locked eyes with Oishi. Oishi looked puzzled, wondering what the matter was. Why would I feel uneasy to look behind me? That was because the person at the end of the line was reading out the numbers through, doing so straight from my notebook. It seemed that HQ was in quite an uproar thanks to my report. No matter how many times the authenticity of the evidence I had linked to the grandson was called in question, I could only respond with that it was the truth. When the lead investigator first picked up the phone, I was grilled about the evidence I'd found that was almost too good to be true, even if I do say so myself. But after doubts dispelled, he fell into silence. The receiver was finally handed over to the section chief. When he picked it up, the background thrum on the other side of the line disappeared, and I knew that it had gone completely silent. After asking the same question about the wallet that the lead investigator did, the chief quietly spoke his next words.
わかりました。こちらから何人か増援を送ります。今日の夕方には到着できるでしょう。赤坂君は引き続き現地調査をお願いします。
Oh boy, let's see if our survival is going to stay. Yeah.
財布が発見された地域の情報を収集しててください。加納さんは何人か選んで現地へ直接。
The fact that he was sending Kanyo, whatever, the lead investigator here meant that the chief had decided there was a possibility that the Anafuguchi Guardians were somehow inflicted in the kidnapping. However, it felt as though until the lead investigator, whom he trusted, had verified the evidence with his own eyes, he was still going to be skeptical about everything.
どうでした？
本庁から増援が出発するそうです。私は現地調査を命じられました。財布の落ちていた場所はどこ？
高津戸のあたりだそうです。ここが沖宮。ずーっと行ってここがひなみ沢で、さらに上流にぐーっと上がっていくとこの辺が高津戸です。
Oishi explained where the wallet was found by pointing in the location of the map on the wall. The place called Takatsudo, fuck my life, was even more remote than Hinamizawa was.
高津戸界隈はほとんど民家なんかありませんよ。昔の廃村です。無人の家屋が点在する、なんとも寂しいあたりですね。
大石さん、高津戸へ案内してもらうことはできますか？
構いませんよ。赤坂さんお一人ではなかなか自由にひなみ沢に出入りはできないでしょうからね。無論また野球帽とマスクをしてもらうことになりますが。
That Oishi had agreed to accompany me was very reassuring. If Sato-san's information was to be believed, my cover had already been blown. I wasn't sure if the villagers had realized that the flesh meat dispatched from the public safety was a tourist that had visited the village yesterday, in other words, me, but deciding that they hadn't noticed would have been overly optimistic. Given the sensory thought, Takatsudo, I hope I'm saying it's Takatsudo, or Takatsudo, I don't fucking know, where the wallet has been found, couldn't be ruled out of the hiding spot for the kidnappers. The Takatsudo area didn't have any residential buildings, nor was it alongside a highway. There wasn't any reason even for the locals to go out of their way to visit it. It was exactly what you would call a long-forgotten ghost town at the end of the road. You couldn't ask for a better place to hold a kidnapped grandson. Also, if you couldn't get to Takatsudo without passing through Hinamizawa first, those several conditions made an area all more important. I didn't brush it off any longer. There was no longer any doubt that the Anafuguchi Guardians or someone hired by them was involved in the kidnapping. If that was the case, then the fact that this wallet was found might have already been leaked to them. They already knew so much as how Public Safety Division was operating. The case of the wallet couldn't be something they didn't know. In that case, there was a possibility that the enemy was lying in wait. To dive alone into enemy territory surrounded by enemy territory, to say the least, required is an amount of courage of, nay, recklessness that I just did not have.
大石さんの同行がなければ そうおいそれと踏み込めない村でしたので、ご協力いただけて本当に助かりました。正直なところ、またお金を要求されるのではと思ってましたよ。
それは正直を言えば、ひなみ沢なんか好き好んで生きたがないですからね。運賃でも弾んでもらいたい気分ですが、でも一緒にタコを囲んだ友人の頼みとあれば断るわけにはいきませんしね。
Well, looks like us playing Mahjong was a good thing, huh? Oishi grinned as he pounded me on the back. It struck me that he didn't just want to jump ship rather than having any sort of sense of duty towards his job. Even so, that doesn't really matter. Right now, I really appreciated the gesture.
早速出してもらえますか。
If the enemy knew that the police had obtained the wallet, then they would probably have moved the hostage to a different place. There wasn't a moment to lose, but Oishi, without regard to the fact that we were about to head out, began to remove his
何を
jacket.
知ってるんですか。
まあ用心ですよ。家中の栗を拾うなら相応の用意が必要と思いましたね。あなたも来ますね。
What Oishi pulled from the drawer below this was a stab-proof vest. Yeah, I might need that. His name was Toshiki Inukai, the grandson of the Minister of Construction, Inukai. That was the only reason for him being here. If you didn't include gym or art class, his grades were above average. That was the result of having private tutoring sessions twice a week. If you omitted the fact that he still couldn't do pull-ups, there wasn't much else that could make him hate school. Of course, he understood full and well that his grandfather was a cabinet minister, but he also knew that not too many people were interested in their relationship. He didn't like to go out of his way to bring up his grandfather, or to call him the Minister of Construction. And finally, he at least tried to know a little bit more about what kind of work. Anyways, I started whatever. What that entailed was that when you tried your best to make your life better for the masses, sometimes you made a few enemies. He knew that all too well from the time he had spent as class representative. His grandfather had many enemies. He knew that he might personally catch some of the fallout, so he had to be twice as cautious. He was taught that by his parents. That's why, the moment he was kidnapped, he instantly knew that this was one of those occasions. He understood that he wasn't being treated as Toshiki Inukai, the person, but rather as Toshiki Inukai, the grandson of the Minister of Construction. That he wasn't personally at fault, but that it was the result of some unavoidable trouble with his grandfather's work. It made little difference, but when he realized that it wasn't because of anything that he did, he was able to relax, if only for a little. Of course, at first he was struck with terror befitting his age, wondering what was going to happen to him. But after a while being tied up and only being able to stay laying down, he began to ponder many great things. First, he thought about the reason that he was being abducted like this. He understood that answer easily. He was taken hostage to Korhir's, whatever that fucking word is, his grandfather, the minister. There was no doubt about that. He didn't know exactly what the Minister of Construction did, but it was easy to imagine that that there was much to be gained from threatening him. He respected his grandfather more than most. Why can't I fucking read today? What is wrong with me? He earnestly believed that his own grandfather was within the top 20 of the most important people in Japan. That was exactly why he couldn't forgive anybody who tried to threaten his beloved grandfather, More importantly, he wouldn't forgive anybody who would use him as a tool to threaten his grandfather. His grandfather was really busy and rarely had any time to meet with his relatives, and that's why, with what little time he did manage to scrape together, he just dropped by unannounced. And as an apology for not being able to meet during New Year's or summer vacation, he doted on his grandson very, very much. The number of times that Toshiki was looked upon with disregard just because his grandfather was a politician and a minister certainly weren't few. But he never thought that even once that he wanted his grandfather to quit being a politician. Because it was his beloved grandfather who wanted him to continue his career as long as possible from the bottom of his heart. However, Toshiki was now being held hostage, and his grandfather was being threatened. His grandfather, who called him the apple of his eye, was surely suffering. He might do anything to save his grandson. Maybe even putting alongside his ideology if it was required to save his grandson. He might cave into the culprit's demands if it meant saving his grandson. Then Toshiki thought about that. An inexplicable anger welled up from within. In his current situation, he was unable to forgive the cowards who would make his beloved grandfather suffer by using such dastardly means. That feeling swelled up inside of him, displacing the fear. What he thought at first was something any boy could imagine. Get out of those bounds, beat up the bad guys, and hand them over to the police. Images of all the brave heroes from the manga he had read passed through the back of his mind. In his imaginary scenario, he slipped through the bonds easily, floating like a butterfly to evade his captors, and stinging like a bee to bring them all down. In the end, it was nothing more than his silly little fantasy, but with his vision obstructed and unable to see anything, it was something that he could get into more than any anime at the moment. In actuality, he was enjoying these little scenarios in his head for a long period of time when he was tied up. His captors hadn't really done anything to him that would make that he would feel sorry for, or they would feel sorry for. However, eventually he began to grow tired of his fantasies, and more realistic scenarios began to run through his head. It was when he realized that none of them were a solution. Yes, he wanted to do something for his grandfather who was being threatened. That he was being held here was to inflict pain on his grandfather was the thing that he could least forgive, and it was also the most vexing. And then he noticed there was a much simpler way he could have saved his grandfather without having to beat up his despicable captors. That was to remove himself as hostage from the hands of these villains. If he was to disappear from here, his captors would have nothing to threaten his grandfather with. The captors had restrained him, but they didn't threaten him roughly, and that made sure that he was fed well enough. Meaning, at most, he was nothing more than a means for their threat. They weren't looking to bully or kill him out of spite. If he behaved, no ill would come for him. Realizing that gave him a strong sense of courage. And carrying his train of thought this far, he let it run its course to its natural conclusion. Right now at this moment, Toshiki Inukai had decided to escape. His ears had been stuffed with sponge-like material, acting as makeshift earplugs. However, they didn't actually do much to block out any sound, as he could overhear anything that his captors were saying. Realizing that this was his advantage, even when his captor spoke to him, he acted like he couldn't hear them due to the earplugs. His captors, thinking that he couldn't hear the conversation, talked about all sorts of things without any reservations. Thanks to that, he was able to obtain various pieces of information. First of all, this is in Tokyo. It seemed that it was quite the distance away, and on top of that, the countryside nestled deep into the mountains. It also seemed that his captors were inconvenienced by living out here, so they would delude that the place was far removed from any sort of town. Finally, whether they went out to buy food or whenever they went out to buy food or other supplies, they would always take a car. That fact caused him some dismay, because he knew that the method he learned at school of running around blindly while shouting help wouldn't work here. He paused his little mental escape scenario there. His ultimate goal was to find somebody who would be able to help him. If somebody who fit the description wasn't close by, then his chances of escaping grew insanely slim. A desolate, far-off land deep within the mountains. A place where you couldn't even go shopping without using a car. In this situation, escaping was going to be very, very difficult. He grew depressed, and after a little while, he returned to his original scenario. Imagining becoming a hero like the manga he read and beating down his captors because his respite. However, as he played those delusions out in his head, his heart, hating to surrender, continued to search for another way to escape. And then, he thought of a way. If the goal was far away, then all he had to do was get closer. His goal in a nutshell was to find somebody who could help him. In other words, somebody other than his captors. If he faked being sick, then his captors would have to take him to a hospital, or bring a doctor to him. They would probably be reluctant to do that, but he already knew that the hostage was more important than anything. If in the off chance that something happened, like for example him dying occurred, they wouldn't be able to threaten anybody anymore. Luckily, he had experience that would help him fake a serious illness. Let me guess, it's to skip school. At the end of last year, he was inadvertently involved in a car accident that had to undergo surgery. The scar from that surgery is still clearly visible from his lower torso. He recalled the pain and suffering from that time. The existence of that experience would make a huge impact on the realism of his performance. He was quite confident in his ability to fake an illness. His captors at first took a look as he needed to use a washroom. Untying only his arms, they tried to bring him there while he was still blindfolded, but he didn't try to get up. His hands now free only clenched at his abdomen as he wriggled in agony.
おい、どうしたんだ? 腹でも痛いのか?
He still had his earplugs in, so he had pretended that he didn't hear his captors asking the question. He was about to nod, so he hurriedly had to stop himself.
どったんね? 小僧が腹を押さえてるよ。腹痛かな?
His captor looked down on his suffering form for a bit. One of them proposed a course of action, while the other laid his doubts that Toshiki might be faking it.
どったんね? 腹痛むんかい? そいつ耳を塞いでるから聞こえてないぜ。参ったんな。腹痛に効く薬なんかあらんね。薬局行って買ってくるか。腹痛って言ったっていろんな薬があるだろう。症状がわからないうちはいい加減な薬は買えないぜ。腹押さえてるし、便秘やん。便秘薬でも買ってくれば収まるやんね。間違って飲んでも死なんしな。決めつけるなよ。盲腸とかかもしれないだろう。俺のおじさんがさ、昔急になったことあってよ。あれはかなりビビったぜ。
One of the captor leaned over beside the boy, who was bent over in
か
agony.
わいそうにな。全身汗だらけじゃないかよ。腹か？痛むのか？おいおい、痛むんならあんまり抑え込んじゃかえって悪いぞ。
Realizing that his captors were concerned about his stomach, he inadvertently let his shirt slim right up, letting the scar from his surgery come into plain view. His vision was still obscured by the packing tape, so he couldn't see their reaction to his scar, but his captors were taken aback, and judging by their momentary silence, he had obtained the reaction he was looking for.
おい、やばいぜ。この手術跡はそんなに昔のものじゃないぜ。その小僧、 熱出てるんかいね。体温計あるん？
あるわけねえよ。でもすごい汗だぜ。おでこは結構熱いと思う。緊張状態が続くとさ、昔の傷なんかに応えたりするって聞いたことあるぜ。
じゃあどうすんよ。薬じゃ治らんちゅんてんか？
何の手術跡か知らねえけど、とにかくまずいだろ。下手すると命に関わるぜ。
まずいんて。これは本当にまずいんて。
医者に見せた方がいい。このままじゃ突然ぽっくりいっちまう可能性だってあるだろう。
Toshiki Inukai, with those few words, knew that the situation was progressing exactly how he envisioned it, and snickering to himself on the inside, pressed his act even further. He didn't even need to see to know that his captors were panicked and were running around like chickens with their heads cut off at this troublesome turn of
診
events.
療所連れて行くか。
そりゃまずん。先生を連れてくる方がいいね。
入江の先生か？いいのか？大丈夫か？
人質に何かあったらまずんね。しゃあない。緊急事態やん。
One of the captured hurriedly to the left of the car. Another of the men, completely shaken up at this point, wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. It looked like they were bringing a doctor. As long as the doctor wasn't an accomplice, that doctor was his goal. He was someone he should seek help from. His captors were probably wary of that happening. They would be prepared for it. This would all come down to luck. Some of the sweat emerging from his brow that was nervousness. At that moment, the packing tape that was covering his eyes and ears was torn off. The burning light that he was seeing for the first time in several days hurt his eyes. After that, the gag that made him hard to breathe was also removed.
大丈夫かこそ。今お医者を連れてくるからな。しばらく我慢してろな。
The doctor was coming. The doctor was coming. Now, how was he going to ask for help? And how was he going to get away from his captors? A plethora of thoughts began swirling through his
分
mind.
かってると思うが、お医者に余計なことは言うなよ。俺たちも別にお前に乱暴がしたいわけじゃないんだ。そりゃ分かってるよな。
Toshiki Inukai nodded while feigning pain in obedience. His expectations and the enemy's expectations, whether they doubted he was faking his illness or not, they knew what his goal was and would try to stop it. His stomach contracted from the stress of this gambit, making it seem like his stomach was really starting to hurt. No, it really was. But there was no reason to panic. If he had failed to approach with his approach to the doctor, there was nothing to lose. If there was something to lose, it was this method of faking an illness to get in touch with the doctor. If he could think of other methods from here on out, it wouldn't be much. But at the present, this was the easiest, most dramatic way he could think of. The more he thought about it, the more it looked like this was his first and last gambit. Eventually, he heard the sound of a car approaching once again. The sound of the cars being hurriedly opened and shut. The sounds of several footsteps approaching. A young man in a white medical coat. As he acknowledged the boy, a suspicious look showed itself on his face.
彼は
What's up, coach?
村の子じゃありませんね。
The captors didn't respond. From the looks of it, the young doctor had realized that this was an abnormal situation. One of the captors talked threateningly.
先生には関係のないことです。
For a while, the doctor and the captors silently glared at one another. However, unable to stand the sight of the boy continuing to suffer, the doctor, as the captors had hoped, didn't press any further.
その古い手術跡というのが何の手術でしたか？
そりゃわからないです。
本当は診療所に連れ帰るべきなんですがね。
先生、そりゃさすがにちょっと。
The doctor said he wanted to bring the boy back to the clinic, but the captors simply silently shook their heads in notion. It was a fleeting hope, but it was only natural that the captors would refuse. At that moment, his eyes met with the doctor's. Seeing that boy's painful state was abnormal, the doctor suspected that it was a serious illness.
大丈夫ですか？私は医者です。この手術跡はいつ頃のものですか？
去年の冬に事故で。
事故？そうですか。参ったな。
He couldn't let the doctor figure out he was faking it here. He had to somehow figure out some way to keep this going and tell the doctor that he was being confined and needed help.
患部を少し触りますよ。痛むところがあったら言ってくだ。
Okay. Seeing that was extremely painful, the doctor crossed his arms and began to ponder. He had to somehow get himself to a hospital. To Toshiki Inukai, faking this illness was a performance of a lifetime. Fucking grand! Wow! Come on, EVA. Come on, my dude! Get us out of here. Get us the fuck out of here.
皆さんもご苦労さんなことです。お暑いでしょうが、せいぜい頑張ってくださいよ。不法投棄のダンプが現れたらすぐにご連絡ください。急行いたしますのでね。
So, like, coach is involved now, which is, take your poison. I don't really know if that's a good or bad thing, but I'm gonna presume it is probably a good thing.
ご協力感謝しますよ、大石さん。どうぞ。
A gap wide enough for a car was opened up in the barricade. Oishi showing his gratitude, or perhaps a threatening attitude, with a short beep of the horn, rolled the car forward through the checkpoint. This time my appearance was the very embodiment of the word suspicious. A baseball cap, mask, and sunglasses. On top of that, even though it was sweltering, I was wearing my hoodie. Any respectful police officer would loathe to not stop me for questioning. I had meant to be overcautious, knowing full well that my face was known. But that might have already been too late for that to have been in any use. Using that as an excuse, I did that's a word. The unbearably hot hoodie and windbreaker, ripped off the mask and hat and threw them to the seat beside me.
ありゃ？いいんですか？
こんな小細工したところでどうせ割れているでしょうから。
そりゃまあそうでしょうな。
Oishi, probably thinking that my unexpected behavior was funny, continued to laugh. The beautiful and pristine scenery of Hinamizawa spread out before me. The village itself would have been quite beautiful if it weren't for the complicated circumstances surrounding it at the moment. I would absolutely love to take Yuki here for a drive one day. Come to think of it, I didn't get a chance to call her last night. I played around with the idea in my head, but in reality, this village wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I had heard everything at the prefectural headquarters. At the heart of this village, the intelligence network that the three families wielded was, due to blood ties and regional relationships, unbelievably well organized. Their net spread not just around Hinamizawa itself, but encapsulated the entirety of the city of Shishibone as well. when I first heard of that, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I didn't take it completely seriously. How could a local organization out of the boonies here have something I'm gonna die. I couldn't deny that somewhere in the back of my mind, I had ridiculed the thought. But not only were they really threatening the minister, but they had demonstrated that they had a complete grasp on their movements, which were supposed to be top secret. They were almost like a secret police that controlled a small Eastern European country, like some spy novel. The villagers here wouldn't bat an eye at getting their hands dirty if it meant fighting the dam project. I also heard something like that in the prefectural headquarters. Ah, now that you mention it, when I first arrived here, Oishi also said that this was a place of a war zone, didn't he? The residents of the village were at the same time the freedom fighters. Although by definition they were no different than guerrillas or militia. Or military, I don't know what the fucking word is, doesn't matter. They weren't protected by the Geneva Convention. What the fucking hell? But they also didn't have to adhere to the rules either. This place was more of a quagmire than any legitimate battlefield. A secret war was unfolding. I could drive along because Oishi was with me. But if I was to leave the car for even something as trivial as looking for a vending machine, there was a chance that I wouldn't return. Even though a single shot hadn't been fired, this was a battlefield. No, the reason why bullets weren't flying was simply because it was hard for a civilian to obtain a gun in Japan. So they were probably just equipped with weapons other than guns that were easier to obtain. That was why Oishi was wearing a stab-proof vest, yeah?
赤坂さん、緊張してます。
The fact that I was apprehensive was, of course, picked up by Oishi-san. If he had already figured it out, then there was no point in trying to deny and or hide it.
もちろんです。敵の本拠地にたった2人で乗り込んでいるんですよ。この人数では万一の時が不安です。
万一の時？な大丈夫ですよ。
この村の人間すべてが敵ではありませんでしたか。全員が口裏を合わせればこの村で白昼堂々殺人が起こっても証拠一つ残らない、そういうところだと聞いていますよ。
This was what the ironclad rule of not barging into a Yakuza office alone was about. Tell that to Majima, honestly. Tell that to Majima. If there wasn't a neutral party involved, that area wasn't bound by the laws of common sense. True. If something happened, you wouldn't be able to prove it, and there wasn't anybody who would take your side. It was pretty much the definition of poking a bear.
ひなみ沢地区へ向かうと同僚に言い残してますしね。万一の時は無線機もありますし。赤坂さんが怖がってるほどね。そう簡単には完全犯罪はできませんよ。まあ、もちろん油断をしないに越したことはありませんがね。赤坂さん、緊張しすぎですよ。前にご一緒してた時の方がリラックスしてらしたじゃないですか。な
Well, that's because I didn't realize the hell that I was going up against. Laughing it off, Oishi thumped his chest and grinned, as if to say that I could depend on him.
まあ、本当の本当にヤバくなったら桜の大門にはこいつがありますからね。
Oishi made a motion by sticking out his index finger. It was undoubtedly the image of a gun.
役に立ちますか。
撃った後の後始末云々が怖くなければ実に心強いですよ。
An officer's gun was only for show. If you really wanted to fire it, there were quite a number of and you would have had to prepare long blah, 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 blah. That definitely wasn't worth it. So even if the officer did unholster his gun, there wasn't one who actually wanted to pull the
赤
trigger.
坂さんは持ってるんですかこれ
まあ一応
撃ったことは
ありますよ。訓練でです。
そりゃそうでしょうな
なら大石さんにはあるんですか？
私ですかなまさかあるわけないじゃないですか。
What was this? I thought he was laughing at me because he had experience. The two of us laughed
銃口を
together.
向けたこともありませんがね。銃口を向けられたことなら何度かありますよ。銃口を覗かされるだけで寿命が3年は縮むな。
Even if he had never fired a gun before, you couldn't begin to compare the amount of experience Oishi had over me. At a time like this, I could only marvel again at how reliable Oishi seemed.
そういえば日の高いうちにこっちには来たくなかったな。でも車道はここを抜ける以外にないし。赤坂さん、念のためもう一回マスクで顔を隠してください。
どうしたんです？
冷房がうるさいから聞こえないかな。切りますよ。窓を開けてみてください。
When I opened a window, a blast of hot air blew inside. And then I could hear angry yelling coming from far away. At that moment, the forest gave way on either side of us, and our view expanded suddenly. And there could be seen the Hinamizawa Dam construction grounds. The very front line for Hinamizawa Village. The crackling blare of someone's voice sounded over an enormous loudspeaker. The roar of angry voices continued to rumble. The incredible volume had become the sound cannon spewing out its ammunition. The prefabricated site office was surrounded by two sets of high fences laced in barbed wire. Lined up in front of those fences were riot police and their vehicles. And surrounding it were the villagers. They howled out their protests against the dam as a single entity.
今日は少ないですね。ついてます。
少ないんですか？
ええ、多い時だと道路までいっぱいになりますよ。うちうち車も通れません。
At first, due to their overwhelming intensity, it looked to me like there was more people than there actually was, but upon closer inspection, there were at most 50 to 70 of them. But the 6 or 7 propaganda trucks that lined up looked like they belonged to a band of thugs, were a strange enough sight. The villagers were also wearing helmets and bandanas, as well as covering their faces with masks, adding to the oddity of it all. The propaganda trucks, after bringing their chorus, had their volume turned up even higher and began to flood the area with sutras, or whatever the fuck that word is. My fucking model is glitching. Hold on. It's not glitching, but like, hang on. Reset position. That might have fucked it up. It has totally not been too long since I've fucking worked with this shit. That should hopefully be okay. To say that the noise was downright violent wouldn't be an understatement. From this distance, it was still this loud. The glass in the office was probably rattling from the noise.
あれをガンガンやられるとたまんないんですよね。昨日の連中全員耳栓してて、それでも耳がおかしくなるそうです。 気の毒な話です。
騒音規制でなんとかできないんですか？
うちの県には騒音規制に関する規定ね。それにほら、お経でしょ。宗教活動規制できないし、連中も頭いいんです。
Is what I think Goichi said. Actually, no matter how tightly the window was shut, the booming sound of the sutras still filled the car. I couldn't even hear what Oishi, who was sitting right next to me, was even saying. As the car approached the line of propaganda trucks, a blare became difficult to bear. It wasn't enough just to plug my ears with my fingers. I had to hold my head to keep my skull from splitting apart. If I had seen this terrifying energy sooner, I probably would have understood that Hinamizawa village was much quicker. Quick. Huh? How did I stutter on that? Now I knew that they wouldn't blink an eye at sacrificing themselves in order to protect their hometown. So goddamn noisy. Shut up. My head throbbed and felt like it was going to split apart. My eardrums crackled on top of it all. I felt like I was going to throw up. With the road crowded with the throng of squatters, the propaganda trucks, and the riot police vehicles, there was no easy getting by. Even if you tried to shoo the squatters with the car horn, they were also wearing earplugs, oblivious to noises of the outside world, and wouldn't easily move. The car would only inch forward at a snail's pace. Even then, the car eventually got through, starting to leave just a noise behind. I don't know.
ほら、昨日一緒に麻雀やったメンツにお年寄りさんいたでしょ。覚えてます？
I remember that there was an older person who wasn't exactly mince words. The guy that Oishi called old man.
いらっしゃいましたね。
彼ね、第一航空の現場監督さんなんですよ。あそこのプレハブの中でイライラしながら仕事をなさってるんでしょうね。お気の毒なことです。
あれが毎日ではたまったものではないでしょう。
耐えかねて辞めちゃう人が後を絶ちません。まあ、その度にお給金がアップしてるんで何とも言えませんが。
Even having to deal with that noise and hostility, they still made a wage that Oishi found inviolable.
ちくしょう、こいつら。聞こえてるのか聞こえてないのか。
A group of squatters were in the way of the car. Oishi, sufficiently annoyed, laid into the horn, but there was no indication that they were moving anytime soon. In this din, could they not even hear a car horn? Or did they hear it and they were just being fucking malicious? If there were any riot police nearby, they would have made the people move, but it just so happened that there weren't any around.
もう、ちょいと待っててください。
Oishi opened up the door. The hot air and even more heated roar of the crowd spilled into the car. Oishi said something as he grinned widely, but I couldn't hear what it was. He was getting them to move. Something like that? Oishi stepped out of the car and closed the door, and I'm assuming Oishi probably gonna kill them. The din faded slightly. I stared blankly as Oishi headed towards the group and started some sort of conversation. Maybe we'd find the minister's grandson in Takasudo. At the very least, I wanted to find him there. Find him and slip this cursed bound of this incomprehensible village. I could only pray. At that moment, a shadow was suddenly cast over me. Somebody was standing right outside the passenger side window, blocking the sunlight. I spun around and looked up and realized who the black-lit figure was. You know, I kinda knew that it was Rika, but I was expecting something to look a little more horrifying. It was a girl. It was Rika Furude. The girl stared down at me with a bored look in her eyes. I didn't have any justification for it, but I felt like I had been found by somebody I shouldn't been found by. To fill the silence, I raised my hand and mouthed a meek greeting. Of course, there was no way she heard my small voice in this clamor. But then, she should have seen me wave my hand in greeting. In spite of that, she simply stared down with a cold look on her face. At that moment, the noise and heat spread throughout the car once again. Oishi had returned to the driver's seat. Taking a look at the group that was blocking the road suddenly started to move aside while glaring at our way. Oishi registered the figure of the girl behind me. One of the villagers came over and picked her up. In a manner of, "It's dangerous, so get away." It was then that she whispered one or two words, however I couldn't hear any of it. As if to shake off any still audible angry noises, Oishi floors the gas. Along with the roar and the din of the shouting, the villagers and the girl quickly disappeared behind us.
銃撃戦の覚悟は大丈夫ですか？安全装置外すの土壇場でとちらないでくださいよ。
Oishi laughed mockingly again. I was more concerned with what the girl said, however, as I was vaguely bothered by it. What was she trying to say with an apathetic and candid expression?
今から緊張したって仕方ないですよ。むしろ収穫がなくて勇み足って可能性だって十分にあるんですから。
But there was no longer a way to confirm what the girl had tried to tell me. It might have been that the girl who warned me to go back to Tokyo again, or else, was saying to me, who was here now, ignoring that warning.
警告したのに、バカなやつ。
I hate a feeling that she said something like that. I love this visual novel! I love it. I love this visual novel. Still no tips though. Alright. If you were to call Hinamizawa a rather lonely village, then Takasudo was outright desolate. For your everyday city boy like me, oh god, I can't believe it was ugh. I couldn't understand why anybody would force themselves to live here. There were signs that people had, but they were all covered in dust or enveloped with ivy, indicating that it was all abandoned.
こんなところにも人は住んでいたんですね。
まあ昔の話でしょうな。こんな偏僻なとこじゃ年寄りには辛いですし、若者だってもう少しまともな土地に住みたいでしょうしね。後を継ぐ者がいなきゃ最後にはこうなるってことでしょうな。
Even if I had no personal attachment to the village, seeing the disused buildings made me feel a little sentimental. It seemed that Oishi also felt the same way.
こんなところで財布が発見されたんですか？財布の取得者もよくこんなに偏僻なところに通りかかったものですね。
ああ、村人には山の中に畑を持ってる連中がいましてね。そういう連中は朝晩ここを通りますから。
畑仕事の村人たちは早朝や夕方にここを徒歩で通ると。
まさか行けるところまでは車で行くでしょうな。
早朝や夕方にこんなところを走行して落ちているたった一つの財布を発見できます。
できたんでしょうな。
取得者はどこで取得したと言っていますか？
もう少し先を行ったところにある茂みです。取得者はたまたまお腹が痛くなってちょいと茂みで用を足そうと思ったらしい。それで偶然見つけたらしいんですよ。中にちり紙でも入ってるのを期待したんですかね。
話ができすぎているように感じます。財布発見の当初からそういう違和感が拭えません。
I expressed the feeling that I had from the start of the day, quite frankly. It seemed too good to be true, but it was unwavering proof. But it was too perfect, sickeningly so. That was my
で
feeling.
きすぎってな、案外当たってるかもしれませんよ。
というと？
実は四課のお友達からちょいと聞いたんですがね、園崎お涼が大臣の孫の誘拐事件について言及したって話なんです。
言及した？
大臣の孫ももう誘拐されてから何日にもなってかわいそうだ。そろそろ解放されるといいな。そう、お涼のばあさんが縁側でぼそりとつぶやいたってな話らしいんです。で、そのぼそりが園崎家の裏の裏のあちこちに伝えられてるようです。
Right. I had heard something earlier from Sato-san, the informant, that when the leader Oryu had concern, somebody in the family would be considerate.
つまりそれは実質上の人質解放命令ですか？
私はそう見てます。この出来すぎの財布発見は孫を警察に引き渡すためのイベントじゃないかと。
どうして人質の解放を？
そりゃ人質を解放するなんて理由は一つしかないじゃないですか。
何です？
取引の成立ですよ。ひなみ沢ダム計画の中止を大臣が約束ってことですかね。
ダム計画なんて必ずなくなっちゃいますのです。
At that moment, those words that the girl had said resurfaced in the back of my mind. In the end, it was turning out exactly as she proclaimed. That young girl knew the circumstances. She knew everything about the kidnapping incident from the beginning and the end.
赤坂、
なんだい？
東京へ帰れ。あなたはもう幾ばくもしないうちにこのそれがあまりにもみすぼらしくて気の毒な姿だから今のうちから警告してあげているのです。
どうして私が後悔することになる？
いちいちうるさいな。あなたの親はあなたが赤信号の横断歩道の真ん中にいるときどうして危ないのかを全部説明し終えるまであなたの手を引っ張らないの？引っ張るでしょ。まず歩道まで連れ戻してからなぜ危険なのかを解くでしょう。つまりはそういうこと。
The girl, who knew everything from start to finish, had warned me at the beginning, go back to Tokyo.
赤坂の怖がり
孫は無事見つかるでしょうが、その後はいろいろと厄介な問題になるでしょうな。どう厄介になるかは一警察官の私には想像もつきませんがね。
フルでリカって少女ご存知ですか？
What I had said was quite that Oishi was sat in stunned silence for a while.
もちろん知ってますよ。御三家の一つ、フルデ家の一人娘ですね。
どういう少女なんです？
おやおや、これは意外な人物名にちょっと驚きです。公安ではフルデ家が臭いと睨んでおられるわけで、私にも情報を分けてくださいよ。
あ、いや、 そういうのじゃないんです。ちょっと気になったもので。
まあいいや。同じ卓を囲んだ友人の質問なら答えないわけにゃいきませんからね。
友人と呼んでいただけて光栄です。
で、あのお嬢ちゃんはね、まあ村のマスコットみたいなもんです。
Somewhat?
村中の誰からも愛されてます。中でも年寄り連中には特に崇められてましてね。
崇められる？
よくは知らないんですがね、古出家に生まれた女の子ってのには多少神聖な意味合いがあるらしいんですよ。ひなみ沢の土着信仰ですがね、お社様の生まれ変わりだとかなんとか、そんな話があるらしいですよ。
お社様。そういえば同盟の登り旗の中にお社様と書かれたものがあったような気がします。何ですか、お社様って？
なあ、ひなみ沢の守り神様の名前です。村にあだなす者に罰を当てるって信じられてましてね。まあそんな便利な神様がいたらダムの連中はとっくに神罰にやられているんでしょうが、幸い今日までその罰ってやつは一つも起こってませんがね。
村にあだなす大臣の孫がお社様の怒りに触れ、なんて言いましたっけ？そう、鬼隠し、大臣の孫を鬼隠しにしたと、そういう筋書きになるわけでしょうか。
なるほどな。そういうことになるんでしょうな。
お社様が下した神罰なら、犯人はお社様の生まれ変わりであるあの少女。
Even I didn't know exactly what I was saying. The fact that Oishi laughed it off was a bit of a relief. Oishi's joyous laughter was so infectious that I began to laugh like an idiot as well.
ありゃ、こりゃ珍しい。
Oishi, after laying into the horn several times, rolled down the window and leaned out, waving his arm in an exaggerated manner. It was a car headed the opposite way. Until now, we didn't run into any cars except to our own. And of all places, it was in this desolate location. It seemed that Oishi knew the owner of the car. Was it Irie? The other car also chirped its horn, came to a stop.
入江の先生、こんにちは。
The other car's window rolled down slowly, revealing a young man in a white overcoat. He was about my age, or perhaps even a bit older. But you couldn't really judge somebody by their appearance.
大石さんじゃありませんか。こんにちは。珍しいところでお会いしますね。
そりゃこっちのセリフですよ、先生。まさかこんなところで会うとはね。どうしたんです？
いえね、ちょっとした往診です。
ありゃ、そうですか。休館とかでしたか？
いえ、そんなに大したことではありませんでした。よかったですよ。
お医者の世話にならずに済むならそれに越したことはないです。
ではこれで。急いで戻らないとスタッフに怒られますんで。
診療所長さんも大変です。ではでは、お気をつけて。
The young doctor named Irie, after dressing his farewell, drove forwards and soon disappeared around the corner. Oishi also drove forwards, but soon came to a stop again. He pulled out a worn map book from the dash. His expression didn't have an ounce of whatever that word. He was perfectly serious.
どうしたんです？
今日は診療所は往診の日じゃないはずです。よっぽどの休館か特殊な事情のある患者ということになりますね。
Oishi flipped through the pages, opening up the map of Takasudo. After that, he took a look around and started to figure out what our current location was.
その急患が怪しいということですか？
言ったでしょう。高津戸地区にね、今私たちがいる道はここ。入江先生はこの道に対して
Having no sense of our surroundings, I couldn't digest anything about the place he was indicating on the map.
私たちは財布の取得場所を目指しています。ちなみに取得場所はここ。でもね、高津戸地区にわずかにある民家に向かうにはそもそも道が違うんです。
つまり入江医師は民家のない方角から来たと。
山間の段々畑で農作業中に誰かが倒れたってのでない限りね、人が倒れて医者が呼ばれたら普通は連れ帰って詳しく調べるもんです。でもさっき理恵医師は大したことはなかったと言いましたね。車には他には誰も乗っていなかったようですし。
Oishi didn't say any more than that. I also said nothing more. The doctor just now examined a patient close by, only that. The noisy radio had suddenly gone quiet. The sky had just suddenly turned into oppressive color. As Oishi might start to rain. Fucking hell, downpour started as though trying not to disappoint him. Eventually, Oishi stopped the car. The only sounds that break the silence were the percussion of the rain on the roof and the soft squeak of the windshield wipers.
ちょいと静かで行きましょうかね。
Saying that in a quiet voice, he exited the car without his umbrella, careful not to make any noise. Oishi leaned over, indicating the other side of the thicket. He was pointing to a prefabricated shed and a car that was parked beside it. The car obviously looked well cared for, and it wasn't a vehicle that had been left there for several years.
あの小屋は
営林署の機材小屋です。夏場以外は利用されてないと聞きました。
あの車は営林署の職員。
さあね、公用車には見えないですね。
Oishi was playing it cool, but my nervousness was gradually increasing.
一応は念のため。
Saying that, Oishi returned to his car. I thought he was going to get an umbrella, but he had grabbed the onboard radio instead.
もしもし、大石です。聞こえてるかな？こんにちは、こんにちは。
はい、沖宮 PS。大石さん、感度良好です。どうぞ。
今、高津戸地区の営林署機材小屋前です。矢後地に向かう方じゃないよ。平見沢から高津戸に入る方の。
はい、確認しました。
小屋に不審者。これより職質します。5分で連絡なかったら駐在所に連絡と大至急応援パトを送ってください。よろしくお願いします。
了解しました。
じゃあ行ってみましょうかね。
Well, I guess we got no choice, huh? Since he was first confined here, he had heard the sound of a car multiple times, so he just thought the far-off sound was more of the same. However, the reaction of his captors was until now something he hadn't seen before. They jumped, reacting as if shocked by a jolt of electricity, and pressed against the window, cautiously peering outside.
止まったな。
営林署の人間、まずいぜ。
いや、警察やんな。
One of the captors lifted the boy up by his collar and pressed the blade against his cheek.
お兄ちゃん、ちょい静かにしてるな。分かってると思うけど、大声出したりすると大変なことになるからな。
Toshiki Inukai was sure that the doctor had reported things to the police. He had felt relief when he thought that he had been saved, but not imagining that his captors would resort to violence when they were cornered. His anxiety remained unabated.
どうする？時間稼いでる。小僧連れてちょい裏から抜けな。ほとぼり冷めたら打ち合う。
One of the perpetrators grabbed the boy by the collar and forced him to stand. Of course, Toshiki Inukai tried to resist by feigning that his illness had been aggravated by the rough treatment, but his captors paid no heed. The door was violently banged upon.
ごめんください。こんにちは。
The door was banged on again. Toshiki Inukai hesitated for a moment to respond to that voice by yelling. However, while he was being indecisive, his mouth was covered, taking that option away from him. The leader of the captors waved at the other to go. The younger perpetrator nodded in response, and while keeping the boy's mouth covered, started heading towards the back door.
はいはい。何かご用かいね。
どうも。警察ですがね。ここちょっと開けてもらっていいですか。急な雨で困っちゃいましてね。
ええ、今開けます。
The moment the lock was undone, Oishi forced the door open, and with a gleam of menace in his eyes, he pushed the man aside as he stepped into the room. And then in a small, empty room, he was able to quickly discern that the boy whom he was looking for was nowhere to be seen.
私はここは営林署の機材倉庫だって聞いてたんですけどね。何にもありませんね。
There was nothing inside the room that would indicate that this was an equipment shed. There was only a mountain of blankets, indicating that someone was sleeping here alongside empty food packets strewn about.
ああ、ここはずいぶん前から空っぽさね。機材がしまってあるところなんて見たこともね
えわ。でも営林署の建物でしょ。あんた営林署の人。
あんたこそ誰よ。 警察?
The two of them glared at each other suspiciously. Both Oishi and the man steadfastly refused to reveal their identity before the other did. The man, judging from the sharp look in Oishi's eyes, realized that it would be hard to talk his way out of this one. No matter what he said, the most time he could buy would probably be only a dozen seconds. Only the sound of the rain filled this tense moment. Just then, they heard a sound of a struggle from far off. Oishi had a hunch. There was no doubt that Akasaka, who was circling around the back, had run into the perpetrators who was trying to slip by. As Oishi thought that, the man in the front of him had reacted a moment faster. The man swung an attack that was more intended to obscure Oishi's vision rather than to actually hit him in the face. Seizing this opportunity, the man aimed to kick at Oishi's groin without any hesitation. But he missed his mark and was unable to land the critical blow. Holy shit. The man, trying to pin Oishi, grabbed him by the base of the neck with both hands, fiercely tried to push him down. But as Oishi fell backwards, as if kicking the man upward, he dug his feet into the man's midsection. With that leg acting as a fulcrum, the man flung by falling Oishi as if by a circle throw. The two of them squared off in the pouring rain.
面白いじゃないの。俺とやろうってか。ね。
Oishi, as if trying to cheer himself on, grinned smugly. He then stood up while brushing the mud off himself. Even though he countered the assault, Oishi was getting up rather awkwardly compared to the man who he threw, who swiftly sprang to his feet. Akasaka's voice rang out from the distance. Judging by the distress in his voice, he had already engaged in a fight and wanted Oishi to convene with him. But Oishi's hands were already full as well.
Akasaka-san! 申し訳ない! ちょっと待っててくださいよ!
The man raised both his fists in a stance that hinted him being acquainted with karate or some other form of martial art. Of course, Oishi, an officer of law, was distinctly versed in judo. he also had the moxie to have been through his fair share of fights before. Because of that, he could tell that the man in front of him was quite better at fighting than him. Ah, damn it. Thinking that was going to be easy just because the order came from the Sodazaki family to release the hostage had been a mistake.
なかなか上等じゃないの。久々に胃液がこみ上げてくる感じがしますよ。
Oishi played off the situation like it was no sweat. His opponent, seeing his attitude, took that to mean that Oishi wasn't going to go down that easily. The man wildly charged forward, attempting to grab Oishi. If the man managed to successful clinch from his low stance, Oishi would be tackled to the ground and end up being mounted. It was something that you saw often when children fought, but it was a really bad position since you couldn't do much once you were in it. Oishi, responding to that move, also lowered his stance to collide with the man head-on. At that moment they clashed. Oishi grabbed the man's lapel, whatever the fucking word is. Anyways, he yanked it upwards and smashed the man's solar plexus with an elbow in the same arm. It was a move from Oishi's own personal brand of brawling judo. And then he grabbed it on his own free hand and attempted to throw his opponent with both hands. But the man lowered his center of gravity and swung his arm in a large arc, intertwining them with Oishi's. Not only that, but he had forced both Oishi's elbows up to the outside, and Oishi, now in an awkward position, was in danger of exposing his back with his hands still clenching the man's chest. This guy practiced Aikido or grappling, didn't he? Oishi, cursing the fact that his fingers were twisted into the man's shirt and couldn't get away, released his grip. But he was still in the awkward position of being bent over. Don't we all know that? Sorry. And on top of that, at zero range, the man was able to read Oishi's movements completely and tried to squirm his way into a better position. And then took his palms into his hands and swiftly clapped them over both of Oishi's ears. Clapping the ears in any other martial art except for self-defense was basically forbidden. Karate and Judo didn't recognize it as a legal technique. It was that much of a single, most dangerous attack. Oishi raised both of his hands as he tried to reflexively clutch his own ears. But before that could happen, the man wrapped his arms around Oishi's neck. His thick biceps clenched firmly around the base of Oishi's neck in a vice. Oishi instinctively thought that he was going to be killed. After all, it wasn't hard to believe that a man like this, who was accustomed to fighting, could crush his opponent's neck from this position. It's been a while since we've seen a red fade. Actually, we haven't seen it since chapter 1, holy shit. But his opponent didn't do that. He had chosen to keep his hold and force Oishi to lose consciousness. That's why Oishi at the moment, even though his face was twitching, was grinning widely. Even though his opponent had a chance to kill him, he didn't choose to. He was thinking, this guy has no intention of killing me. However, even though that might be the case, the man's hold of his neck was by no means gentle. In no time at all, Oishi's consciousness began to fade. Having the experience of being taken down countless times in judo during his silent days, Oishi was utterly resigned to the fact that it was over. Akasaka was finally recovering from the intense pain of being kicked in the rather sensitive area. He had bumped into a captor carrying the boy in the back of the entrance. He had seen Toshiki Inukai's picture plenty of times, but wasn't able to immediately discern if the boy in front of him was the real deal, with his mouth covered from packing tape. Also, with his limited experience, it wasn't hard for him to panic over how to deal with the situation. Of course, the perpetrator didn't overlook this momentary lapse. His kick landed severely in a critical spot, with Akasaka not even having the time to call for help. As the man flung the boy over his shoulder, he headed towards the front of the shed. But upon hearing Oishi's blowing voice, he gave up on going that direction, and then dashed off towards the forest. As if the weight of the boy slung over his shoulder wasn't even there, Akasaka was lost for a moment. Meeting up with Oishi, who was fighting with the enemy, was by far the safer option. But he couldn't just lose sight of the fleeing man. Akasaka stood up and chased after the captor's back. He ran through the short thicket, branches and fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The tips of the branches raked and clawed at him, small scratches inscribing themselves on his body one after another. He kept on stepping into the puddles of mud, and his shoes were soon filled with murky water. For Akasaka, traveling through this unexplored forest was, even though this was an emergency situation, extremely unpleasant. As he said that, he regretted it immediately, as it was but a waste of breath. There wasn't a thief in the world that could politely stop when told that they were police. To a city boy like Akasaka, running through this forest was an arduous task. However, it must have been no easy task either for the man carrying the minister's grandson. He neither gained nor lost ground in his pursuit. Akasaka, upon realizing that, gained back a bit more composure. Just keep on chasing him. We are running in the same conditions. In fact, the man running with an awkward stride was far more at a disadvantage. They couldn't run forever. Eventually he would definitely trip and fall. As long as he was being hounded, he would definitely stumble. As soon as his wish was fulfilled, the man who had stepped into something lost balance and was no longer able to bear the weight of the boy, dropping him. Akasaka, in all honesty, didn't care about the perpetrator at all, as long as he could ensure the safety of Toshiki Inukai. So if the perpetrator ran off by himself, it was perfectly acceptable. But it seemed that Toshiki Inukai was important to the man as well, and didn't choose to run away empty-handed. Akasaka didn't know what to do in this kind of situation. His first priority should be to ensure the safety of the boy, subduing the captor being less important. Grappling with the perpetrator wasn't something he planned on, but most likely, it was either do or die. Akasaka's moment of indecision proved to be fatal. The man aiming right between, or rather, both of us, struck out with a jab. Not wanting that, Akasaka raised both his hands to shield his face. At that moment, the man kicked at his unguarded midsection. The pain almost felt like his vital organs were being squeezed out of his body, but he latched onto his opponent's leg. But his opponent didn't hesitate one bit. Leading another seized foot and jumped at Akasaka, applying pressure and pushing him down. Akasaka was unable to withstand it and fell, but under no circumstances was he letting that leg go. The two men fell together in a tangled heap. The man was desperate to pull his leg free from Akasaka, but having fallen into an awkward position was unable to. The two of them rolled around the ground, floundering about, trying to gain an advantage. But Akasaka, who was folding onto his opponent's knee with both hands, and that opponent, who had complete freedom to move his upper body, were in two complete different situations. The man gained a positional advantage on Akasaka, who was still latched onto his leg and couldn't move away, and pounded full force on his head with both fists. Not only that, but he found a rock nearby and began to beat it against Akasaka's skull. Damn. The difference between being hit with a fist and being hit with a rock, it was vast. Akasaka quickly thought about letting go of the man's legs to free his hands and protect his head, but if he let go here, the man would get away. If he didn't dig here, everything would be for naught. The boy was trying to save right there. He was going to save him and go back to Tokyo. If he could do that, then it was goodbye to this freakish village. Without looking, I could tell my forehead was split open and was gushing blood, but I didn't let go of the man's leg. How could I? I won't let go. When the man realized that no matter how much he beat my head, he wasn't getting away. He used both his hands to grab my throat and crush my windpipe. Oh my fucking... I pulled my head back as a slight form of resistance, but it was no use. The man's hands enveloped my neck and began to crush it like ice. It was less about the pain and not being able to breathe. It was as much as being choked so hard that it felt like I was going to throw up. It felt like my stomach was going to turn itself inside out. but I could only endure it. Damn it, damn it, damn it! My throat hurts. I won't let go. I can't let go. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to resolve this and go back to Tokyo. Go back to Tokyo. Talk to Yuki. All about our unborn child. We were going to talk about our bright future. I had no intention of loosening my grip. However, it loosened just a bit and the man's leg came free. The man kicked as hard as possible and I tumbled backwards. My head was spinning and I was unable to get up right away. No, I couldn't even put any strength into getting up in the first place. Even so, I couldn't back down. If I let him escape now, this chance would never come again. Even just catching their scent was nothing short of a miracle. If we weren't able to get the minister's grandson back here, there wouldn't be another chance. The man tried to drag the boy's feet, but the kid was displaying some unexpected resistance, allowing me to get up unnoticed. I grasped a rock the man had just beat me over the head with. Now it's my turn. The rock should be able to supplement what meager strength I had left, adding more strength and enough power to my attack. My fist, still wrapped around the rock, dug it into the side of the man's torso. It seemed like it hurt him quite a bit. The man rolled around for a bit, clenching his side. Freed from the man's grip, the boy hid behind me. The boy, whose words, to the boy, those were the words he was waiting for the most. But the crisis was still not over. That was because, even though he was clenching to his side, the man had gotten up and taken a fighting stance. I could see in the man's eyes a resentment and the pain that I had caused him, and the confidence that he could to still beat me. If we were to clash head to head again, he might not even stop if my head were split open. The man reacted adversely to the word reinforcements. That was because he now knew that arguing like this wasn't just a waste of time, but putting him closer and closer to danger. Realizing that, the man shifted mental glares to almost too quickly. The man pulled out from his back pocket, of all things, a gun? Of course, I'm a police officer. It's not like I don't know what a gun is. But having one pointed at me was something I'd never expected before. Was it real? Of course it fucking was. There was no way it'd be a replica in a situation like this. As long as he still held that gun, no matter how much I yelled at him, I was at a distinct disadvantage. But I still had a fighting chance. If I were in his shoes, instead of wasting time yelling at each other with this, I would just shoot him and take the boy. That way was the fastest, and would suppress any sort of further resistance from him. But the man was demanding my surrender, without having fired a shot, meaning that he either didn't want to shoot or couldn't. In other words, the man in front of me, he was soft. If I could buy just even a little more time, the factors would lead to my victory were numerous. Oishi was probably on his way, and the reinforcements we called for before we're coming here should already be well on their way too. Not only that, but they should have contacted the local police box. Without any doubt, somebody stationed in the village would be much quicker than that. At that moment, I heard a rustling footage of heavy footsteps approaching. If Oishi was coming here, it was a whole new ball game. The man couldn't have more than one gun. I had thought that time was on my side. but I had failed to even imagine that the enemy could also have reinforcements. You could tell that the man who had just arrived was one of the perpetrators just by looking at him. Well, fuck me, I guess.
くそ、大石さんはどうしたってんだ。ああ、あんの樽男かい。落としたったら泡吹いとんよ。大石さんがくそ。
The boy, sensitive to the impending danger, curled up behind my back. How could this be? Damn it!
期待してた相方は来ないってよ。ざまあねえぞ。観念するのはてめえの方だ。
As I backed up against a large tree while still protecting the boy, the second man also pulled out a gun.
2回しか言わない。頭抱えてそこにうつ伏せになるんよ。断る。
As I shouted in protest, blood erupted from my left shoulder. It took a few moments to register that I had been shot. Compared to the ones in movies and TV dramas, the first actual gunshot I heard was simple and mundane. In fact, the sound was more akin to small fireworks I used to buy from a corner store as a kid. But there was no comparing the pain. It was a fear you only knew after you have been shot. The boy, in his confusion, tugged at my clothes, agitating the wound even more. I wanted to put on a bold face to reassure him, but my voice was hoarse and had an opposite effect.
大丈夫。すでに応援は要請してあるんだ。すぐに警官隊が駆けつけてくれる。
警官が来る前に、お前ん額にもっぱつくれちゃる方が早いんだ。無駄な摂取をすなっちゅう本家に言われとんか加減しとん。あんまりなめとんと容赦せんとよ。
This was bad. This was very, very bad. The second man was completely different from the beast than the first. He had no signs of yeah, anyway. If this man said he'd shoot, he'd shoot. He wasn't somebody that a man like me could buy time from. I really hated to admit it, but at that moment, the image of Yuki's smiling face crossed the back of my mind. I knew what that meant. I was warning myself not to throw my life away over a matter of pride. Of course I didn't want to die here. I was just starting a new life with Yuki, and wanted to see the face of our soon-to-be-born child. Why would I risk my life for some minister's grandson when I was at such a critical juncture of my own life? Damn it, damn it. I need to stop rambling at myself. So, what do I do now? Give up the boy and extend my own life? What a good idea! Everybody's life is precious. My own life was in danger. Nobody would blame me. Damn it. Hurts, it hurts. If I had known it would be this painful, I wouldn't have played the tough guy. My biggest miscalculation, though, was the sound that the gunshot was far quieter than I had imagined. If it was only that loud, it would have been drowned out by the rain, of the forest. It wasn't something that somebody far away could hear. Alright. Now I know that in Chapter 4, one of these options will most likely kill me, and the other is the right choice. That's at least what I'm getting out of this. I got a feeling I might want to save just in case. Just in case. So my options are to plead for my life or wait for an opportunity. Part of me wants to say that waiting for an opportunity might be the option that's right. And because of that, I want to choose plead for my life.
待てよ待て死にたくないよあんこっちだって死なせとうない分かればええん分かれば撃つなよ撃つなよ帰りを待ってる妻がいるんだ死にたくないんだよ叫ばんとでも撃たんね おとなしい頭抱えてうつ伏せになったら歌うんだろうね。
本当だろうな。本当だろうな。約束は守れよ。絶対だぞ。男と男の約束だぞ。
守った。男と男の約束し合えよ。
守れよ。じゃあうつ伏せになるからな。なるからな。約束守るんだから銃を向けるのやめろよ。
I got a feeling this is actually gonna result in death.
やっぱうつ気なんだろ。うつ気なんだろ。俺がうつ伏せになったら後頭部をうつ気なんだろ。
歌んね歌んね。わかった。しまってる。銃はしまってる。男と男の約束しやねえ。どんなこれなら文句ないんて。ね
え、極めて文句ないですよ。
Wait, did I actually choose the right choice on accident? What the fuck? Ayo, ayo. It was over in a flash. The moment he lowered his gun, Oishi didn't let this chance slip by. Oishi had been assessing the situation for quite some time from behind the two men. But since they had their guns trained on me, he didn't really have a chance to jump in. Seeing that look on Oishi's face, indicating that he wanted me to create an opening, I took on that role completely. Oishi forcefully lifted an arm that was holding a gun. And then he took the gun from the man's hand in only an instant. The other man, who was a bit slow at grasping what was happening, pointed his gun at them. But with his ally grappling with Oishi, he couldn't pull the trigger. If that man was the one that was wrestling with Oishi at the moment, he might have shot without hesitation. But this man wouldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. Oishi kicked the other man away while aiming the stolen gun in his left hand and pulled it out. Oh no. With guns akimbo, he was aiming at both men at the same time. It was perfectly played. But heedless of the guns pointed at them, the men shouted, "Scram!" as they scattered away at full speed. It was over in an instant. Those two running away without putting up a fight was honestly unexpected. Oishi, quietly clicking his tongue in admonish whatever, slipped both of the guns into his pants pockets.
あいつらもよく知ってるな。
何をですか。
逃げてる背中を警官は撃てませんからね。私も退職金が惜しいもんで。
Oishi and I grinned at each other.
君が犬飼俊樹君？犬飼検察大臣のお孫さん？
はい。
これはでかい事件になるかな。どうせトカゲの尻尾切りになるんでしょうけどね。
Oishi smiled amusedly. The fact that the Onifuguchi Guardians, or rather the Sonozaki family behind them, was pulling the strings was apparent, but proving it is not going to be easy. And with apologies to Oishi, this incident was unlikely to go public. If this caused an uproar, it would obviously lead the minister losing his office, with HQ having decided that doing so was in the natural interest, or national interest, what the fuck? I can't read. This would probably be cleaned up quietly. It might be a rough way of saying it, but this was born in the shadows, and was going to die in the shadows. Oishi probably understood the implications behind this incident.
とにかく非常線を張らせましょう。連中まだ一丁は拳銃を持ってるようですからね。それから犬飼君を保護して赤坂さんはすぐに病院に行かないと。
Whoops. As the tension of the situation had faded, the pain from the gunshot wound in my shoulder blossomed once again. My forehead was also stinging painfully, and had grown hot enough to start a fire. Thinking that the tension had caused me to sweat, I wiped my own forehead, but what came off was a large amount of blood. I realized that my shirt had been stained from bright crimson from blood flowing from my head. I turned around. The boy was safe and sound, without a doubt. There would probably be an investigation on the man who ran, but that was for another day. At this point in time, I could safely say that we cleared the major hurdle of securing the boy's safety. As soon as I recognized that, I felt the lights in my head had been hit with a power failure. My knees buckled from underneath me, and the ground was feeling as soft as a cloud. It didn't feel unpleasant, even though I was covered in the rain-soaked mud. Oishi came closer, asking if I was okay, but somehow I couldn't tell. I turned off the switch to the last light in my head. The exhaustion enveloped me. Sleep. Something softer than any blanket wrapped around me. Well, fuck. A very kind person. So that was us surviving that incident. That's pretty cool. Okay, hold on. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to save right here. And I want to load back. I want to see what happens when we choose the other option. Alright, wait. Okay, watch for an opportunity. Let's see what happens when we choose that. Shit, 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 shit. I can't afford to die in a place like this. I need to survive and return to Yuki's side. For a moment, I catch a glimmer of hesitation in the eyes of the man holding a gun. This guy's unsure about shooting me? If so, maybe if I jump at him now, I could... In a flash, everything before me grows dark as my consciousness leaves me behind. It was only after my body temperature rapidly came down in a burning sensation and my chest turned numb that I realized I had been shot. Oh! They bring me back to the title screen! Oh my god! Dude, you're shitting me. That was pretty cool. It makes me almost kind of wish that the previous chapters had some stuff kind of like that. Like, whether they were canon or not, I don't care. That's cool. Makes me wonder, though, is Akaza gonna die at the end? Still, despite all that? I don't know. Anyways, let's see. A very kind person. Patients admitted to the hospital can only accept calls at fixed times. That's why she wouldn't be receiving a call from him today. Yesterday, she had teased him that he had gotten lonely easily, so he might have struggled with the idea of calling her sooner. That was much easier to imagine, rather than he might be too busy with the call. Because he was just that type of person. Yuki whispered that, smiled to herself. The announcement that visiting hours were overplayed over the hospital intercom along with some music. She exchanged pleasantries with the family of the patient that was staying in the same room as her, probably eager for his mother to be discharged. Their small child was wearing a beaming smile. The child's mother was pregnant in the bed next to mine, with what may be her new brother or sister. They were probably ready to burst with expectations, dreams and worries of having a new sibling. The joys of a growing family. Bathing in the warm feelings, I stroked my own belly, which had grown quite large. I had talked with them about how many children we wanted to have. We talked about how if we had 3, it would certainly be lively. However, there was the inescapable worry of whether I would be able to handle giving birth that many times. Yuki, smiling as she said that to herself, gently stroked her stomach. The I'm sorry, I can't read. Public Safety Division. The place where that man's sense of justice had led him. That person was actually very gentle, a very fragile person. He didn't talk much about specifics, but didn't think that he was suited for the assignment that he was on right now. But as long as he said that he was going to try his best, I would watch over him warmly.
あなたのお父さんはね、とっても頑張り屋さんなのよ。くちょこちょこちょこちょ。
Yuki seemed to be enjoying herself as she talked to her own belly. At that moment, Yuki suddenly became concerned about something and looked out the window. It used to be this time, long ago. She remembered that when she was little, around this time in the countryside that her mother had lived, the Higurashi would fill their air with their chorus. This was the middle of Tokyo. Unlike the countryside, you didn't hear the song of the Higurashi. But for some reason, at that moment, Yuki felt that she wanted to hear that song. I don't think you do. I don't think you do. Okay, that wasn't all the tips. There's definitely more to this bullshit. Definitely more to this bullshit. That was my first time losing consciousness. You often hear about regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this was my first time actually experiencing it.
もしもし、大丈夫ですか?
Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seems like my body language told him that I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. Scratches all over my body were also treated. My sense of pain also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from the intense pain shooting all throughout me.
起きないで横になっていてください。頭をだいぶ殴られたようですからね。24時間は特に安静にして容体を見守りたいところです。
Ow! Hot damn.
ここは
私の診療所です。入江と申します。よろしく。
I remember that this was a young doctor in the car that was heading the opposite way earlier.
誰かいませんか、大石さんは。
あ、呼んできましょう。診療所の中は禁煙なんで表で吸ってもらってるんです。
Dr. A left the room to go call Oishi. The scenery outside the window was tainted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped, with the voices of the Higurashi cooling temperature. I felt that the tone of the Higurashi's voices was rather comforting. Eventually, I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oishi's. The fog that enveloped my head slowly faded back to reality. What happened since then? What had happened to the boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door flew open, allowing Dr. Irie and Oishi to enter.
じゃあ命に別状はないんでしょう？
ないとお約束はできません。頭に受けた傷は所見だけでは判断が危険なのです。
わかりましたわかりました。ちょいと彼と二人で話がしたいんですが、よろしいですかね？
You better tell me the boy's okay.
ええ、どうぞ。何かありましたらお呼びください。
Oishi, after basically forcing Dr. Irie out, shut the door.
いかがですかお具合は？
慣れないことをしたので全身がボロボロです。
Oishi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against the wall and sat down beside the bed.
犯人たちは逮捕されましたか？
残念ながら。とっくに県外へ逃げたか村人にかくまわれているかのどちらかでしょうね。まあ逃がしはしませんが。
大臣の孫は？
署で保護しています。ただ東京のあなたのご同僚から一切の聴取は取るなとしげちゃんが憤慨してましたっけ？
The kidnapping was a confidential matter, so his custody was probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it had never happened, would probably be handled by Brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then the job had already been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out. But something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over.
ご迷惑をおかけします。公安ってやつはいやらしいところだって思ってるでしょ。
思いません思いません。お互い日の丸から給金もらって仕事してるだけですよ。
Well, she laughed. Yeah. When we first met, I was somewhat Anyways, I was against Oishi. But now, that feeling is gone completely.
今回の事件、隠さないで大元にしてくれた方がこっちは都合がいいんですけどね。そうすれば黒幕の園崎本家に少しは迫れるんですが、まあ適当に迫ったところで圧力がかかるんでしょうがね。やれやれです。
大石さんは園崎本家に今後も戦いを。
まさか。いろいろと黒い噂こそ絶えませんがね。園崎家に恨みがあるわけじゃありませんので、君子危うきに近寄らない方がいいんですよ。ね。
Oishi laughed happily, so I couldn't help but to laugh along.
あ、そうだそうだ。さっき県警から署に連絡があったそうです。あなたのご同僚が名古屋に到着したそうで、あなたは名誉の負傷ですから東京へ引き上げだそうですよ。そんなわけです。あなたの沖宮での仕事は無事終了です。
Somehow I call bullshit. I haven't even read all the tips in this game yet, apparently. Like, you mean I am not done? How close am I to being done? If I look at the achievements, yeah, there's a chance that there's 2 more chapters that I have to endure. I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words.
大石さんのご協力に深く感謝します。あなたに支払った協力金は無駄にはなりませんでしたね。
あら、冗談のつもりだったんだけどな。
Oishi took out his wallet and casually pulled out several large bills and jammed them into the breast pocket of my shirt.
これは協力金の返済じゃないですよ。私からあなたへのお小遣いです。この辺は地酒がうまいんでね。東京へのお土産にこいつで買っていくといいでしょう。
Oishi flashed me a
もし
grin.
もあなたの傷が軽いようなら東京へ帰る前にぜひ声をかけてくださいよ。林さんも佐藤さんもぜひあなたともう一度タコを囲みたいと言ってましたからね。
やれやれ。参ったな。
今度はこっちも小細工抜きです。純粋に楽しもうじゃないですか。
よく言いますよ。現職の警官があんなに濃い様ができるなんて。世も
私どもとね、対等以上に撃てるメンツにはなかなかお会いできないもんです。あなたが東京に帰るのが惜しいですよ。
When I heard those words going back to Tokyo from Oishi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon Yuki would be giving birth. It might still be possible to attend the delivery that I had at one time given up on. When I thought that, the pain from my injuries became trivial. I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yuki once.
少し傷が重いふりをして沖宮にしばらく滞在しません？いいお店をいろいろ紹介しますよ。もちろんおごれなんて言いません。
申し訳ないですが、それはまたの機会にします。妻の出産日が近いんでね。早く帰りたいんです。
ありゃりゃ、 それは知らなかった。それじゃあこんなとこにいちゃいけない。早く帰らないといけません。
For a while after that, Oishi asked all kinds of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me.
さて、具合はどうです？起きれそうですか？
ええ、おかげさまで悪くないです。立って歩いても全然平気ですよ。
I stood up and shuffled around a bit, which seemed to amuse Oishi.
いえいえ、ひなみ沢の病院では落ち着かないでしょうと思いまして。入江の先生は一晩泊まらせたいみたいなこと言ってますが、犯人もまだ捕まってませんし、一応ここはあなたにとっては敵地になりますからね。
この病院は安全ではない。
まあ、入江の先生も多少は社会的信用のあるお人です。ここにいる限りは何もないとは思いますが、赤坂さんの気分的にめいらないかという方が問題ですね。
I had relaxed a bit now that things had progressed this far, but it was exactly as Oishi had said. When I realized that this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. With the only thing left for me to do was leaving, the chance that I would have come no harm was logically fairly low. But that didn't mean that I was completely
そうで
safe.
すね。横になっているだけならホテルのベッドでも同じな気がします。
そうでしょう、そうでしょう。私もその方がいいと思います。
At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oishi's soldier. Or soldier? What the fuck did I just say? Shoulder. It was already evening. The hours when I could call Yuki at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her quickly possible that I would soon be back by her
ちょっ
side.
と雪江の病院に電話してきます。ロビーに公衆電話とかはありませんか？
新婚さんはそういうの豆だな。確か会計の脇にあったと思います。ここで待ってますから、行ってらっしゃい、行ってらっしゃい。
Oishi, laughing while saying that he was jealous, opened up the window and pulled out a cigarette even though he was in the hospital room. Appreciative of how considerate Oishi was, I set out to the lobby to find the phone. The lobby was just a short distance down the hallway from the hospital room. I thought that this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course, there was nothing compared to a general hospital that Yuki was admitted to. Running inside the hospital wasn't the best of manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was nobody else in the lobby. It may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. Well, this might actually be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would still be embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yuki. Taking a quick look around, I soon found a payphone. Digging around in my pockets, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I would burn through this amount fairly quickly. I picked up the receiver, inserted a coin, and then dialed the number for Yuki's hospital, which I had completely memorized at this fucking point. Ring, ring, ring. I don't know what those noises are supposed to be, but I'm The number for Yuki's hospital had a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it in inevitably took some time. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something strange as I was dialing the number. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. That unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow, I felt that I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone. Without getting a response, I hung up the receiver to try again. The coin popped out from the return slot. I reinserted the coin and began dialing again, but the receiver was still dead silent. While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had spent talking with Yuki shrunk. I began to feel needlessly impatient. I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came
はい
over.
はい。どうなさいましたか？
すみません。この電話の調子がおかしくて、ちょっと見てもらえますか？
The man came over and tried testing various things as the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at a hospital, not someone who worked at a phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he.
あれ？なんだこれ？
The man held up the cord connected to the phone wall. It was completely severed.
なんだこれ？参ったな。これじゃ電話会社の人に直してもらわないとどうにもならないですね。電話でしたら事務室のを使います？
I didn't want the people in the office around while I was talking.
近所に公衆電話はありませんか？
ここを出て道なりに行くと商店街に出ます。
I don't really want to go outside knowing the potential fucking dangers that this world loves to bring upon me.
そこのどこかの角のタバコ屋にあったような気がするな。行けば見つけられると思いますよ。
I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages just looking at me. You could tell that I was a hospital patient. No matter how you looked at it, I was not dressed for wandering outside. But that's where yeah. Anyway, choosing the chance to talk to Yuki for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. Follow the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. The only 2 lines as my guide, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. I don't like that it's nighttime. I don't like that it's nighttime. I don't like that. Oh, fuck. Fuck, 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 fuck. This is not gonna end well. This is really just not gonna fucking end well. With the village nestled in the valley, when the sun set, it got dark quickly. The sparse street lights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashi, knowing the time of their course was soon to close, they redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as a person at the hospital had suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it already? Or was I getting farther away? I was just about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me. I found a shop in the corner with cigarettes written on a small sign. My joy spurred me onwards. Just as I had heard the hospital sat next to a counter of a cigarette shop was acquainted by a payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was. I probably didn't have much time left, though. But it was enough. Just as long as I could tell Yuki my job was done and I would be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid the coin down the slot. But I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. After inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried pulling out the coin one more time. But there was absolutely no response. This phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protrude from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. Okay, at first, I wanted to pass off the first shit for being a coincidence. But this can't be a coincidence no more. This is either sabotage or something else entirely. But this ain't no fucking coincidence. If it was 1 payphone, maybe. 2, now I'm getting suspicious. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. It seemed that the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of the sort. And I may have been mistaken, but it didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut.
すみません。すみません。
Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for for someone in the dimly lit interior. Eventually, there were sounds of somebody hollering down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady, plodding with lethargic steps, for some reason, only served me more to make me more frantic.
タバコですかいね。小さまでねんとわがねのしゃ。
タバコを買いたいわけじゃないんです。この電話が。
Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look at it was going to get me nowhere, I swallowed back my words.
この電話が壊れてるみたいなんで、別の公衆電話があるところ
No,
を教えて
dude.
もらいたいのですが。
How much you want to bet this is some weird ass ploy that's trying to lead us away from like safer people or some shit? Like, okay, I get it. We want to call Yuki and all that shit, tell her that we're coming home and whatever, okay? I get that. I really do. I really do fucking get that. It doesn't excuse our stupidity, but I understand it. But think about it like this. Think about the situation that we are fucking in right now. Stop and think about it for 1 second. Not only did we just get out of a situation where we saved the minister's grandson, hell, barely doing it because, may I remind you, that we were shot and also bashed on the skull repeatedly, so we most likely could have died. Hell, we still don't know if our wounds are even 100% fatal. And the only people who we could really trust, at least so far, would be people from Tokyo that came as reinforcements, or anyone involved with Oishi or Irie. And we seem to be getting to a state where we're slowly being pushed away from those safe people. That's what I feel is happening right now. And I'm not for this shit. I'm not for this shit. I'm having a stroke. That is the only excuse for the stupidity that Akasaka. Why? The old lady moved her jaw up and down slowly, as if chewing on the meaning of my words. It seemed that she wouldn't understand until she had digested things thoroughly.
電話壊れてますかいね。そんな難儀だわ。他の公衆電話を当たってください。
No, will we? The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite the ways away. Okay. Man, I forgot to mention that the fucking doctor's office had pretty much nobody. I don't give a damn if it's near the evening. Not all doctor's offices give. That's too coincidental. It's too coincidental. There's no fucking way. Her way of telling me was so long-winded that I had inadvertently started to get impatient. At that moment, I spotted a clock at the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Even if there was a payphone right there that I would use, I would only be able to tell Yuki goodnight with what time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone which I didn't even know the exact distance to. If I was in a normal state of mind, deciding to give up the payphone today would have been the natural thought process. But at that moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. No, just go back to the hospital, okay? We're already fucked out here as is. Unable to use the payphone in the hospital, and coming out here still being unable to use one. There's no mistaking that I had become quite insistent on using the phone. Oh my god.
どうもありがとうございます。その電話ボックス探してみます。
Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. According to the old lady, even though the phone booth was quite far away, it would be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flopping as I am, I couldn't help myself but to laugh. I'll admit that I was quite the steadfast about calling Yuki. But there were days when I was tired and busy when I wouldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries. I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days that I didn't call her. But having twice been foiled trying to call her, I became hot-headed about it. Was I like some sort of dog being told to stay with a piece of food dangled at my face?
何やってんだろうな。
Even so, I somehow couldn't quell the uneasy feeling sitting at the pit of my stomach. It was like that at the hospital phone, and the same with the tobacco shop. Both the cords were definitely not severed from being frayed by long years of use. The clean cuts indicated that someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who? And for what reason? I don't know, maybe to lead us away because we're so fucking persistent for some fucking reason. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. I tried to push that thought aside. How much I had run so far. The scenery around me was no longer that of the shopping district, with the residential buildings scattered about the lonely road. The surroundings had already grown dark. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious that I was far from the hospital. I recalled the clock I saw at the Tabasco shop. It might almost be time. I had run for quite a bit, so my breathing had grown quite ragged. If I had just wanted to hear Yuki's voice, I should have just thrown away my own reservations and borrowed the phone at the office. Yeah, you really should have, and even then we'd be safer there. I regretted it a little. A little? Bitch! Well then. Was it about time to give up? Just when I had thought that, I saw a light in front of me. I had finally found it. And the cord is gonna be severed. Oh my god, I'm actually like tensed up right now because I have so many. Because I have 2 or 3. Okay, I have 3 predictions. Okay. Either Rika's gonna show up and scare the absolute piss out of me. The perpetrators will show up and threaten me to find out where Inukai's grandkid is. Or maybe someone from the Sonozaki family is gonna fuck with me. Or just some random ass thug. I don't know. I really don't know. But those are my 3 theories. I feel the 3rd theory is the least likely, with Rika-chan, with Rika appearing being the most likely theory. The point is, I'm scared to press left click. I'm scared to continue because I don't know what it is. Even when I was going through chapter 1 of Higurashi, when I had very little to no idea what the series was about. Like, I knew it was like a scary series or like a horror, psychological horror, that kind of stuff, right? But I didn't think it was as deep as it was, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really makes sense, considering Higurashi, but there's something about this when, because in chapter 1, the threat was Reina mainly, with Mion being like a pawn of the sort. Chapter 2 had it mainly being Mion, or at least a demon possessing Mion. Or maybe it was Shion. I still don't get how the ending of chapter 2 even worked. Chapter 3, there wasn't necessarily a threat per se, unless you count Keiichi when it came to killing Teppei, or what we presumed was Teppei. Why is it that when Rika is the threat, I'm all of a sudden so fucking nervous about everything? It's like, I don't know how to explain it. There's something about Rika-chan being the threat here that makes me feel more unease than if it was Reina or Mion. Even if it was Satoko, I don't know. Would I feel this way if it was Satoko? I don't know. There's something about this that just kind of like fucks with my mind. Because in my head, in my way of thinking, it's like I'm thinking to myself like, I don't know. I don't know. I I actually legit real shit. I don't fucking know. Well, I guess I shouldn't be dawdling for time now, should I? The only way to find out what's going to happen next is to push forward. It was the phone booth. It seemed that the light in the phone booth had recently changed, as a shown of livid, with the livid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa, it was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. But in any case, I had finally found it! As my hand touched the door of the phone booth, I realized I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was right now, but even for just a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yuki. Since I had spent all this time and effort getting here, turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried that this phone cord might be severed as well. How was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I followed the bundle of cord and run along the cord into the ceiling. At a glance, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I ran my finger as far as I could to look across the line to check it out. The only thing I found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wondered if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of the payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. It might be prudent to talk to Oishi about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. In any case, this one was fine this time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket with one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. But this time, before the receiver even reached my ear, I felt something was off. The receiver was light? It was more than a slightly unpleasant feeling, and it almost was sickening. Oh god. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver with my hand with a measure of rejection. The cold cord that connected the receiver to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. Fuck my life, fuck my life, fuck my fucking life. What the fuck is this fucking shit that's going to fucking ruin my life? What is my model looking at? I went away from my webcam and now my model is just kind of... It's almost like she's looking at the text in, like, utter disapproval. That's what this is... Can I just die? Can I just fucking die? This is by far the most creepy... This is probably the creepiest Hinamizawa fucking Hinamizawa. Higurashi chapter I have ever read thus far. I think it's because I'm also a completely new character. Like, I'm not even Keiichi, hanging around with Keiichi and the other characters. Like, the only characters that I've seen from the past chapters was Rika, who is the threat in this fucking scenario. Oishi, who in the last chapter I didn't even fucking trust. And Irie, who was only introduced in the last chapter, so... I'm just out on knees right now. I don't want to continue. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't understand. This is harder than it looks. Why is this harder than it looks? I went through everything else just fine. I went through everything else in this chapter just fine. And as soon as it comes to this is when I start struggling. I don't... I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know how to handle this. Now, what I'm most scared of is the chance of Rika-chan or the perpetrators showing up again. was all I could do to restrain myself, as the raw and unpleasant feeling worked its way up to the small of my back. It was a type of dread. At that moment, I heard a crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off of the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see the outside into the darkness. It's Rika. It's Rika. It's fucking Rika. It's fucking Rika. It's fucking Rika. It's fucking Rika. It's Rika. It's fucking Rika. It's fucking Rika. Notice how it sounds so monotone now. I think the psycho within me is about to kick in. I think it's about to kick in. Fuck my life. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. Let me grab my water. The uneasiness in my voice, as you can clearly tell, I am prepared for this moment. Inside the phone booth was lit with a strong light that which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, I could feel a chill wash over me. And there was a silhouette of a person. Fuck! 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 I would probably be past this by now.
君は
The long hair of the silhouette blown about in the cool breeze.
怪我人が病院を抜け出してはいけないのですよ。
I don't know. I don't think little girls should be out here in the middle of nowhere, creeping out on the injured. Don't you think? Don't you think, little one? How about this? That's ominous as fuck. Now, do I want to continue, or for the rest of the stream, do I want to play Getting Over It? Because I don't know if my mental state is going to continue to handle this. I don't think I can do this, at least not for the rest of this portion here. I'm assuming I'm nearing the end. Well, actually, fuck it. Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have a basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl.
ねえ、赤坂。
She, Rika Furude, said that almost like it was a warning.
君が電話のコードを
Her expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I felt that she had affirmed my suspicions.
どうしてこんなことをするんだどうして
The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid.
もうどうにもならないことです。
I interpreted her words as a meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. But thinking about it, that would be a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could take what she said to have any other meaning. She just stood there, like a mannequin, not moving an inch. Almost to the point, if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her long hair, it would seem to be an illusion that time had just stopped.
赤坂が私を気味悪く思っているのがよくわかる。
Not my fault. You said some fucking creepy shit the first time we met. That's not my fucking problem. That's your problem, bitch.
いやそんなことないよ
My denial came out almost like a bad piece of composed for a poetry slam. But her words were right on the mark. I always felt something ominous and uncanny about her, ever since her strange threats at the shrine. Fuck you, you little fucking varmint! Fucking little rodent, rascal! Why'd I go so southern all of a sudden? What the fuck was that? She had noticed my expression was contrary to my words, seemingly laughing in the gap between them.
赤坂の怖がり。
You second, you coward. You second, you coward. You can't, you fucking coward. What else you want to say, bitch?
怖がってなんかいないよ。
Being laughed at by a small child didn't suit well for me. Or sorry, sit well. So I said that.
もう電話を探しても手遅れの時間です。
そうだな。
She didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. I might have already missed calling hours even by the time I reached this phone booth. I was late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought that it was strange that I was obsessed. Strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. I mean, just look at what I was wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown, sandals, my head wrapped in bandages, and my body completely soaked in sweat. It was a wonder that the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. I can't even read. It's like...
もうこれで今夜赤坂がすることは何もないです。
そうだな。もう何もないよ。おとなしく病院へ引き上げるさ。
それがいいのですよ。病院への道は
わかるつもりだよ。
I quit. 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 For now at least. I cannot handle any more than I've already gone through. I can't. I just fucking no. No, I don't want to continue forth. I am too fucking horrified. I can't. So let's go ahead and oh boy, do I want to continue? Yeah, I actually could not downright handle that. That was I don't know what it was. Let's play Getting Over It. That should be fun. Let's play Getting Over It. Okay, Getting Over It. Why is there a category called Getting It Up? And why did my mind go to you know what? Alright. I don't know how long I'll be doing Getting Over It for. I guess I should probably switch to the other avatar that I have. Hang on, give me 1 second. Okay. And I'll just play getting over it. Fucking hell. I forgot that the audio is somewhat on the loud side, at least in the main menu. Alright, how do I play again? Oh god, how do I play again? Oh, how do I play again? Oh, how do I play again? Oh no, how do I play again? It's been so long since I have seen my son lost to this monster of a pot cauldron riding man. You know? It's like, it's the kind of adventure you really suspect to see, and I fucking hate myself. Okay. So I was like, say, we're off to a great start. This is somehow more relaxing than being followed by a potentially demonic child in the middle of a obscure location known as Hinamizawa. There's no feeling more intense than starting over. Fuck my life from starting over. Oh, fuck hell. Oh, whoa, how did I do that? Oh, shit. That moment when you've played this game so much that you slowly start to improve. Doesn't mean I'm any good. Just means I'm improving. This part sucks. I hate this fucking part. It's just, I don't know what it is exactly. It's like, you know there's something fucking wrong. How did that happen? Oh my fucking god, I hate that part. Oh shit. Shit balls. Fucking what? How did that happen? I am baffled. Shit. What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is... Seriously? Get the fuck up there. Really? What the fuck was that? I did everything that I normally did when going up there, and it just went, nah, none of that shit. Piss. That... All right. Oh shit! No, no, no! Please, 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 for the love of fucking God. How does that happen? I've never done that until fucking today. Oh, please, please, for the love of fucking God. Please, please. How? How the fucking fuck? I have never fucking wedged this fucking hammer into that shit like that before until fucking today. Was there a fucking patch for this game that I fucking missed out on that makes it to where it's just like, oh yeah, you could just do that now because fuck you. You just get to do it now. It's not a skill. It doesn't help you. If anything, it makes your fucking situation worse than it already is. Like, how? How the fuck? I hate this game. Hate it. For the love of God. or my lack thereof, honestly. The lack thereof, honest to fucking God. What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? What the fuck was all of that? Just random ass shit they're introducing. This is like a Code Vein fucking boss. It's just like, oh hey, did you memorize the boss? Cool, here's 60 new moves that we've never used until now. Thanks, game. I almost want to quit already. We're not even like fucking 10 minutes in, and I already want to fucking quit. This is a good change of pace. Please, please don't fucking fall. It's this part. Why is it this part that fucks up? I swear to God. Final fucking Lee. Oh my God, that took like 6 damn years. This game is atrocious. I swear. I'm in a living state of hell. Don't you fucking fall back down there. Because that would mean that we'd have to start that all over again. And I'd rather die. Let's take it nice and slow. I think that's what we're gonna do. Okay. Well. Let's try this again. No, fucking. Okay. Listen up. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. Fuck you. You fucking piece of shit! Fuck you! Please. I don't want to hear the excuse of like, oh Ash, you just haven't played this game in a while, that's why this is happening. I'm going through the hard parts easier than the easy parts. What do you mean? If anything, the hard parts should be the ones where I'm struggling. Like, look at this shit. Like, that used to be a fucking bitch. Like, I'm still falling occasionally because the game's controls suck. But I got up here. That's a fucking improvement. Fuck this game. How? Why? Why does it do that? I thought I could just launch. No, stop, stop. Oh my god. Holy fuck, I hate this game. Why? Why do I have to control it like that? Oh my god, closer, you fucking dumbass. No. No. You fucking shit, fuck, stop bouncing. You fuckhead. You fuck. How? You know? Oh, please. No! 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 Please, for the love of God! Hate this game. What the fuck was that? The normal mouse movements are not working like they once used to. Who patched this fucking game while I was stop bouncing? Oh my fuck, dude. I don't. That would normally be. I want to die. Was that the coward's way of doing it? I don't give a fuck. Who cares anymore? I will kill you! Okay, just... Come on. Just... You fucking disgraced sinner! Just an FYI, random pot man. You realize your family wouldn't miss you if I just put a bullet in your goddamn skull, right? You... That's a safer option. That's a safer option. No, no. Come on! There we fucking go. God, fuck, hell. This fucking... Now, how the fuck... I move the mouse at the same speed I usually do. How? I don't even move it that This part should be fucking easy. It's fucking stairs! Well, you know, you're right. I should just continue hating this fucking trash heap of a game. I swear to God, I will break you. You fucking trash heap rodent. You're not Sonic. Don't short hop, you dumbass. This isn't the fucking boost formula games, you fucking dumb idiot. What the fuck? You your ass right fucking here, or I will rip your fucking arms off. Fucking God, took fucking long enough. God. And now the part that's like, you're guaranteed to... It's a fucking chair! Now the part that fucking sucks. I'm just gonna push that out of the way. This part sucks. The worst part about this is if on the hypothetical that you fail, which trust me, you will fail. You just fall all the way back down to... I love this. Get me out of here. Get me the fuck out of here. Get me the fuck out of here. I want to get the fuck away from this fucking hellscape. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to... Oh my God. I want out. I want the fuck out. I want the fuck out of this hell. And that's all for the stream for the day. Thank you guys for watching. Well, I say that, but there's like nobody. Anyway, yeah, bye.